if we're pulling melon in one crop, and we'll get squash in another crop, we'll get squash bugs in, or we'll get whitefly, depending on what bugs are coming, which means we're going to be moving that food around for the next turn. Another thing you have to constantly think about is what sells, what will sell for you. The only thing that sold well for us was weird food. I cannot compete in commodity crops. There's no reason for me to grow citrus. There's really no reason for me to grow lettuce because we live in Arizona. So you have to grow weird food to get more money. So you have to specialize in something, but not, I'm not a monocropper by any means. We probably grow somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 different items on our farm. We do grow year round. I am completely blessed. I have a Safeway Albertsons account, and we grow microgreens. And I would like all of you to look into the microgreen market if you want to get started. It's a great, easy, inexpensive way to get cash flow. And most people don't know what microgreens are or how it works, but from seed to harvest is a 10 to 15 day period. So it's quick turnaround, it's quick cash, find your market, and you just need to keep that money rolling. For us, it's kind of when you do the grocery store route like I did, it's a double-edged sword. We have to grow 200 cases every week in and week out. On this property with Safeway, I've been with them 8 years now. I had moved from a commercial building in downtown Chandler, and I went to Albertsons and said, I'm moving. We've sold the building. I've got new property. I need to take a month off, and I didn't have that opportunity. He just said, we'll go buy it from somebody else. So what I was forced to do in 90 days was to build another grow room on another property so that I wouldn't interrupt that contract. That's the double-edged sword about food contracts. If my order is for 200 cases and I only am able to supply 180 cases, I have to make up the difference for the 20 cases. So there's a lot of, when you think of the commercial world or getting into the grocery store side of it, again, food contracts you've got to really have it together to make it work for you. I would not recommend anybody doing it the way I did it. Definitely start small, learn how to scale, figure out what you can grow really well. Find your market. Farmers markets are a great place to start. They're inexpensive to get into. When you start talking insurance, packaging, food safety, which is very lightly touched on in this meeting, but food safety is a big deal. And if you want to compete or if you want to stay under the radar, you can do that, but you're not going to make a whole lot of money. This is a work of passion. This is not a work for profit by all means. So if you're going to put together your little farm and you want to get out there in the marketplace, you're not going to, you'll be a stroke of luck if you make a ton of money doing it. So it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot, and a ton of ambition, and you've got to stay innovative. You've got to keep changing things up. So, which is what we've done. We've been doing it now for about 12 or 13 years. Okay, go ahead and roll. Oh, wait till you see it today. The corn that we grow, was a blue pulpy corn. We don't grow corn for corn, we grow it for a mold that grows on the corn. I was told I couldn't grow hops on the valley floor, so I just had to show them that I could. Although we didn't make any money, hardly any money out of it at all, but the breweries loved it. One great thing about the beer breweries now is that they are all looking for different stuff to make beer with. So they have a heyday on a farm. Bananas, we don't really sell. We have probably 250 banana trees. We do not sell the bananas per se. It's an ice cream banana. It's a little banana. We sell the leaves to the restaurants, and we also sell the trees. We probably sell $5,000 worth of banana trees a year. Go ahead and start the second one. One thing that I was completely unaware of, or that I never looked into for the farm, was using it as an event space. I had a few people that started talking to me about it, and so I threw our first big party, and of course the county didn't like it at all, anything that I was doing. And then I got contacted by caterers and a couple other people, and now it's a whole new revenue stream for us. Of course, COVID had slowed the roll down on the event space thing, but this is more recent. This is just last year. Go ahead and roll. But you can see we're setting up for a big party. We had about 75 people at this party. But there are quite a few organizations out there that are looking for these kind of venues because people just don't, we're very disconnected with their food and where it comes from. So it's kind of ooh and ah. It's really a nice setup. For me, it just makes us, we just got to keep the farm cleaner than I normally would keep it. But here you can see the table setups and the dinners. The duck ponds have changed quite a bit. The whole reason I did this party was to put a cover on my greenhouse because I lost the cover in a monsoon storm. And about 4 days later, I lost the well pump, so all the money went to the well pump instead of the greenhouse. Solar is definitely a huge deal. It's very workable. I did not do battery packs on these panels, but at my previous farm, we were running about $1,400 a month power bill. Once I got the panels up, it dropped my power $1,000 a month. So solar panels paid for themselves in a big, big way. You do have to do some planning. You're not going to be able to run your walk-in coolers and that type of things off of solar panels, but all of your other smaller stuff with solar, it works very, very well, especially here in Arizona. One thing we've got plenty of is sun. I was also the first licensed industrial hemp grower in the county, in Pinell County, which was a huge battle trying to get that done down in Florence. This little town over here knows me very well. But we did finally get it done. We grew some crops. I got some consulting out of Colorado, which was good and it was bad. He didn't know how to grow in the desert, so and the post-processing part of the hemp world was really, it's not put together well. There's not enough business out there. You don't have places to sell easily. So we got into the medicinal side of it with CBD, and now we're crossing it over. And we're having quite a bit of success with that. But now that we've gone recreational, the hemp market has pretty much gone away. Although for a THC or a cannabis license, is an indoor grow here only. It's like a $50,000 get-in fee. And I think they're only going to do 150 licenses. So you got to have a lot of money to get set up there. And that's the end of that video. So basically, when we started with the microgreens, it was inside that barn. I didn't get to finish that story. We did a 90-day turn and built that barn. And on Tuesday in Chandler, we did the Safeway delivery. And then on Thursday, out at the farm, we did another Safeway delivery. So it was an expensive way for me to pull it off, but it was the only way I could keep that contract. So like I said, if you want to build one of these small farms yourself, think cash flow, and then think what it's going to take if you want to hire somebody. If you're working yourself, how much are you going to pay yourself? to be a farmer? Anybody? You're gonna pay yourself $30,000 a year? You're gonna pay yourself $50,000 a year? What do you think you're gonna pay an employee to keep them that can work through the heat? Or 2 employees? Once you start putting money and labor back into the equation, now you've got to start thinking, okay, how much money am I gonna need to make weekly to cover those expenses? We haven't talked about insurances, workman's comp, trucks, all of that stuff. It just piles and piles and piles. So start small, like I highly recommend, and then scale. The farmers markets are going to give you the best, easy opportunity to learn your community and what they want. Then you figure out what you can grow best. Herbs are another great way to get started. It's a low volume, high priced product. And if you can get a few restaurants under your belt, there again, you can just, once they fall in love with you, I am organically certified in microgreens, although the only reason I am organically, and I'm also KIDGAP certified, is because of the Safeway Albertsons contract. I would not recommend that to any farmer unless they know somebody else is going to pay for that certification. There really isn't. The organic certification has been watered down tremendously, but it does make a difference to a grocery store or some kind of a chain type operation. Even if you're selling eggs, if you want to sell chicken eggs, there's a difference between chicken and duck eggs as the state looks at it. So if you want to a duck is not considered poultry. Anybody know what a duck is considered? Pardon? Fowl, game bird. So there is no restriction on duck eggs. But there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people with chicken egg allergies. So you can really make a whole bunch more on a duck egg, although raising ducks and chickens, they're way more messy. There are some different things you've got to do to take care of the duck eggs. But again, if you're a chicken egg, they have what's called a nest run license. So if you sell over 750 dozen eggs a year, you have to get a license. And then they want to make you size your eggs. You got to have a grade. Then you get inspected by the state on a quarterly basis. So if you're going to sell your chicken eggs to a restaurant, it's considered a raw product. The restaurant has to report where he's buying his eggs. So, but if you're going to sell it to your neighbors, completely different story. Or at a farmer's market, completely. There's not enough regulation there. But if you want to grow your operation and you want to get that step up, you've got to start thinking food safety. And really, when people talk about in Arizona, what is our biggest problem here when you're looking at a farm? Most people will think water. And water really isn't your number one problem. From my standpoint, is planning and zoning developers. Our farmland is going away so quickly to the houses that we're just losing tons and tons. But many of my fellow farmers have just decided if they were leasing their land, instead of buying it, the lessees or the lessors are selling their land for the rooftops because the developers are paying such huge dollars for it. Many of our large farms are going away to developers because of the cost now. And if you want to go in and try and buy a 60-acre tract or something of that nature without a whole millions and millions and millions of dollars behind you, it's not going to happen. So small farming, I think, is a really big deal. We should have probably 1,000 small farms in the Phoenix Valley alone. We've seen now just recently with COVID and our pandemic, this is the first time, at least in my lifetime, I've ever seen grocery store shelves empty, which is a stark realization. I mean, granted, if you've traveled the world, we're very spoiled, and cheap food is another thing that we are so used to having because of taxation. So to become sovereign in your way of thinking, to grow your own food, take care of your family, take care of your neighborhood, take care of your community, take care of your church, you can do it, and you don't have to have a lot of acreage to make it happen. I'm probably only farming maybe 2.5 acres of the 3.3, and we could easily feed 30 people a year, no problem. No problem. You're gonna have to eat what we're growing. I mean, that's gonna be a whole different thing. And you also have to learn what grows in the desert. So, and it's a lot of weird food. There's a lot of food that I grow that most people don't even know what the hell it is. So, which is fun. I really enjoy that. And then you also have to learn how to preserve food. Another lost art is canning. I mean, our grandparents all did it. And how they got through, or at least my grandparents did, maybe some of yours did. But, I mean, and that's how that's how you get through the tough time in the winter. We are blessed here with sunshine and warm weather. This winter we had a very low freeze, which means this spring we're gonna have heavy bugs. So the symbiotic relationship of your land and the weather is really gonna dominate how much you're going to produce and how often you're going to produce it. So whether we get an early freeze, late freeze, it's all gonna, everything keeps changing, and so will your food. And as for us, it's me, I have 3 other employees, just in packaging alone for boxes, I spend $25,000 a year for boxes. That's just boxes. So once you think you're going to grow food, now you're going to have to package your food. You're raising food in the desert. You're going to have to refrigerate. Refrigeration costs money, power. So you're going to build walk-ins. If you're going to be inspected, those walk-in coolers have to be inspected. You lose a cooler, you're going to have a backup cooler quickly, or somebody on call that knows refrigeration very, very well. If you want to drive, if you want to get to the restaurant business, you're going to have to have a refrigerated truck, a refrigerated van. You're going to have to probably have more than one, because one's always broken. So you got a backup, just in case. All of those things are part of the consideration of this piece when you're building your small farm. So even though when you want my property this afternoon, and I hope all of you will show up, you can pick my brain about what and how we did it, and why we were doing it that way. And it's typically because we made mistakes before. So if I can help you not make the same mistakes that I did, please ask. That's what I'm here for. But don't let me quash your dreams of doing this, because you gotta do it. If it's in your heart, you gotta do it. And it's passion driven, all of it. Any questions? Yes?
Ballpark, how much of your time do you think you spend doing marketing aspect of what you do, placing your product?
I actually hired that out. I am not technically savvy. I can play in the soil all day long. And it took me a long time to find somebody reasonable that understood Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, gets how all that stuff works, and he does his blasts and everything. And that's about $1,000 a month is what I spend. But I just have to supply him with material so that he can share it. And because of marketing today, your cell phone is a tool. I personally, if I didn't have the farm, I wouldn't have a cell phone. But Instagram is huge. It's a big deal. And the younger generation, the people that you want buying your food, they follow the Instagram and those things really. I'm not big on Twitter by any means, so I am pumping photos, daily photos onto that thing, just trying to keep attention. And then again, as our food grows, my whole aspect has always been on the medicinal side, nutrient-dense food. If I'm going to do this, I'm not going to grow crummy food. And to keep constantly on testing myself, do what's called a BRICS test, B-R-I-X. BRICS is a very inexpensive way of measuring sugar content in your food. I can use it on wheatgrass, I can do it on pomegranates, I can do it on broccoli. And there's a symbiotic relationship between sugar and mineral in everything. This practice has been done since the way back in the vineyards in Spain. And it's a very inexpensive test. So if you have a high sugar content on your food, you know you have a high mineral content. Also, I have a crew of people that follow the farm that are cancer patients. And I didn't promote this by any way, but these are people that took a left-hand turn away from Western medicine that don't want to go through chemo and all that stuff. And they have to have living food. It's part of their desire. It keeps them alive. It's very heartwarming to have people that wouldn't be here today, or they thank you daily because you're providing them with nutrient-dense food. And that again gives you more drive to go and do better. So marketing, I would say, for me, is probably a daily thing where I'm taking pictures of food. And then we'll put it up. We do a pretty big blast on Fridays for the farmers markets. I run 2 farmers markets. I have a farm stand at the farm every Saturday morning from 8 to 12, and then I'm also at the Gilbert Farmers Market in downtown Gilbert. Another thing for you to look out at farmers markets are resellers. These are farmers that don't really grow food. They're buying their food from distributors, Costco, Kmart, wherever they want to get their food. And then they're reselling it under their label or under the auspice that it was grown on their farm. And the heartbreaking part of that is that there's like only 2 farmers markets in the entire Phoenix Valley that are required producers only, and Gilbert is one of them. So most of the farmers markets, there's 55 or 57 now in the Phoenix Valley, and there's less than 20 real farmers that attend them. So most of the farmers are running 2 or 3 markets if they can. It all depends on how big they are and how much money. I mean, if you're going to pay people to go sell your food, again, just another expense. And I've been into farmers markets. I quit them for about 3 or 4 years, but I ran out of money. So I had to go back to getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning every Saturday and pack the trucks and make sure that we're loaded and ready to go. You'll get some people that talk some really big stuff about, they made $8,000 at a farmer's market on a Saturday. Well, and it makes me giggle. How many farmers are going to drag $8,000 worth of food to a farmer's market? It's a lot of food. So it's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of pride in it too. But for me, the market, it just is another way for people, they want to talk to the farmer. It is more important for your customers to know you than it is your label. Or your branding is definitely a big deal, but they don't care about your organic certification, or if nobody even knows what GitGap certified is. The food safety has gone so political, it's beyond recognition of common sense. And so that was another hard piece to swallow, but if you want to play, you've got to play the game. So you just got to go in with a good attitude, and you got to win. There is no really hard thing about food safety or learning it. It's common sense stuff. It's just taking the time to go through all the bookwork, do your study, get through it, get it done, and get it over with, and then go back to doing what you should be doing in the first place, which is growing food. Yes, then.
Can you just talk briefly on what you went through to survive COVID and how that you're...
Well, I had 33 restaurants, and there is a tourist season here, believe it or not. And when COVID finally went down, the tourist season ends at the end of spring training. And you see for the baseball, you see the restaurants slow way down. Once the heat starts rolling in, the tourists bail. So we lost 33 restaurants on one day. We lost 95% of our business in a week. And it was just like, holy shit, now what do we do? And the gardens will grow for those restaurants. So we had a ton of food. We had a lot of food in the ground, and we had to rally. For a while there, I was talking to the crew, we're gonna have to shut our doors because I can't make payroll if we don't have that income coming in. So I was very lucky. I applied for the PPP loan. I did get my PPP loan, which gave me another 30 days breathing room. We completely turned the farm around. We went to CSA, farm boxes. So we changed our thought process. A couple of the restaurants were still hanging in there. They were doing curbside service. They weren't letting people into their restaurants. So I went and talked, they had cooler space. They laid off half of their staff. They were doing anything they could do just to keep the doors open. So I started using my big restaurants as drop locations. I would still do the route, but now we're offering farm boxes for sale through the restaurants. That would keep me out into the community, and I'm dropping 8 boxes here, 10 boxes there, and we built that up via the farm box. The great thing, do all of you know what a CSA is, or the route? Just one person? Right. Do you know how it works? Does everybody know how it works? Go ahead. How does the CSA work?
You buy a subscription basically to so much. We had a neighbor that was doing it, and he would change it throughout the year. He had some poultry, they have chickens, sometimes they have eggs as part of the box, but they had to put in so many hours. The one that he ran, the consumer had to put in so many hours to come out and work on the farm.
Oh, that's a real one. Yeah, that's a real one. Most of them, you don't have to work on the farm, but it's the same thinking. The original CSA was, you're basically investing. You'll buy a subscription in the farm for a 15 or a 20 week, and you'll pay up front. So you'll pay a $200 or a $400 fee, whatever the farmer figures, however the size of his box is. And then that will give him seed money, and he gets all of his equipment fixed so that he could go out and sow the seed and get the thing growing. Great idea. Although they are a lot of work. I set mine up completely different. I was thinking that people were not going to have enough money to, do the $400 or $500 up front because of fear. Number one, they didn't know how long the COVID thing was going to last. So ours was an a la carte box. But it's basically the same thinking. We did an 8 to 12 item box, and it was different every week. And of course, we got people that complained about some of the stuff that you're putting in there was going to be the same thing over and over again. But yet then again, that's teaching people how to eat seasonably. And they want kiwi in their farm box. Well, I don't grow kiwi, so you're not going to get kiwi. But you're going to get your basic foods. You're going to get probably some eggs. You're going to get a lot of leafy greens depending on the season. And then we do a lot of different fun things like drinks and some weird stuff like that too. So, but the farm box really rallied. And I think one of the best things that happened out of the horrible pandemic was that people finally realized that maybe I should be, maybe food is going to be, plays an important role in my health and my immune system. And we should probably learn how to cook again because convenience has gone away quickly. So that was one of the good things that came. Now the restaurants are slowly creeping back, and they're starting to place some pretty big orders, which worries me because I don't, to plant a huge field full of food, or actually we've got like 12 fields planted, and not knowing, because you'll learn once you start cycling your farm what sells and what doesn't sell. And usually, some foods sell really well, some foods don't sell well. But you don't want to grow too much because you don't want to get rid, you don't want to throw it away. You can only give away so much free food. Actually, there's even restrictions on giving away free food now.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I cannot give away free food to just anybody. And so, we donate to churches. We'll donate to, when the food bank comes through, some of the stuff they'll take, some they won't. Which is where the citrus farmers really suffer because they have so much extra citrus, but a lot of it can't go out of state because of bugs. And this is gonna be a big bug spring, so the heat is a blessing for aphids. It will chase away the aphids, but it'll bring on the white flies. Farm is that we do not feed our plants, we feed our soil. We do our own compost teas, we brew everything on property. I have a bit of biodynamic in my blood from my reading, so I'm vortexing water. I'm doing some of that woo-woo stuff that most people don't get. But for me, it's all about the farmer's shadow. If it works, I'll do it again. If it keeps working, I'll keep doing it again. If it doesn't work, I won't do it again. And that's what I hope to share with any one of you. All of your farms are going to be different. They're all going to grow different food better than others. Tree crops are going to be, some are going to do really well, some are going to do horrible. It really depends on what your land will give you. The one thing I dearly love about soil or growing in the soil, you give your soil, 100%, it's going to kick you back 140%. It always produces. It never stops. As long as you're taking care of your land will take care of you. Questions? Yes?
This goes with yours and Isaac's talk, but I've done a lot of reading on regenerative farming and all that, but this nagging thing in the back of my head is, will it work in 110 and 20 degree heat? Will the microbes survive? So your experience is that you can get a biologically active, well-mineralized soil in this desert?
Absolutely. Under 10 inches of compost. So it's compost. Part of our cycle, every garden after we've pulled, before we put it gets recomposted. Irrigation goes back on, then we sow. Every garden gets recomposted after each harvest. Isaac.
Yeah,
Dr. Isaac.
That's fine. So to that, microorganisms are very adaptive. So depending on the climate, each climate has its own microorganisms that survive there. So where there is heat here or not, there are kind of microorganisms that are able to survive within the heat and to do the work that they're supposed to do. So you shouldn't be worried about that. Just do the right thing they're supposed to do.
Correct. I grow mushrooms, so I'm very blessed, and I have that relationship with U of A. I've been with Dr. Pryor now for probably close to 9 years. So I have a mushroom, we took a 40-foot seed crate and converted it. You'll be able to see it this afternoon, and we fruit mushrooms. So I have mushroom bags, spent mushroom bags, hundreds of them on a weekly basis. I'm huge on fungal activity. For me, because of the high alkaline soil, even my well water's got high pH too. I have found that with a fungal-dominated compost, a fungal-dominated soil, that I fight my alkalinity through that. So you'll find after a good rain in my compost, mushrooms popping up all over the place. And even in the compost pile, if you dig through there long enough, you'll find big white roots growing right through the center of the compost pile. And it's all from the spent mushroom bags. So I'm huge on mushrooms. It's an indoor grow. Again, you grow warm mushrooms in the summer, and then better mushrooms grow in the colder weather, but same thing. Hemp is the same way. When we had the hemp crop up, we had a gorgeous crop in August, but once we hit day 50, over 110, it was biblical in the back. I mean, they were just like big burning bushes. They were taller than me, and they would just die. And I had no idea what I was doing wrong. I called, and I finally talked to a farmer in New Mexico, and he asked me what my soil temperature was. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And I go, oh, it's okay, so how deep do I have to go? And I was at 8 inches, and we were still at 105 or something. So yeah, that's your problem. So get your shade cloth up. I can't get shade cloth up at 2 acres and 110 degree weather, and so we lost 80% of the crop to soil temp. Cannabis can't grow in that hot of a soil. So an expensive lesson, granted. And again, with all of the other hemp growers and the marijuana growers that are trying to grow outside, telling you got to grow in the shoulder seasons. You grow in fall and spring. You still have great weather and you can still get great crop because it is a quick turn. It's a 60-day in and out. And it's, you know, it's not brain surgery by any means. You just got to learn when you can and can't grow it. So, I mean, if I would have left that back hen field in squash through the summer, we would have done very well. I would have made a ton more. But again, you are all going to have to experiment on your land and what you're going to work with. If you are not working with well or irrigation, you're working with city water, you've got a whole nother deal, you've got a whole nother aspect to consider. Not only the expense of city water, but what are they putting in the city water to keep it clean or drinkable? What chemicals are going in that water? And what is, if you've ever called your local water bureau, it's kind of like calling the IRS. They aren't going to tell you a whole lot of things of what they're putting in the water. And if they're on well or if they're taking out of the canals, once they make that swap to the canal water for city drinking, they change how they chemically treat the water too. So all of that is very, I was one of the largest aquaponic growers in the valley. I was the first commercial aquaponic grower, and I had catfish tanks they're 8 feet wide and 6 feet deep. They're actually culvert pipes. You'll see the pipes at this farm. But we probably had 2,000 or 3,000 catfish in all of those tanks in the back. And I was doing irrigation at the time, not knowing that my neighbors upstream that didn't like or didn't use the irrigation but hated the weeds were spraying those concrete trenches down with some kind of a weed killer. And then when I would run that water or the freshet into my tanks, it would kill my fish. So, you know, it's stuff like that. It's like, okay, we've got to figure out how do I do this? So what I did is I dug a pond in play or in the middle, and it was like so that I could stabilize the water, make sure that the water was clean before I cut it loose to the fish. I have run out of time. So, any questions real quick? Yes?
How'd you deal with the rodents and such?
Rabbits, we shoot with a pellet gun. I have 2 Great Pyrenees dogs that run the farm at night that keep my neighbors up. That's just for coyotes. Gophers, we really don't have a gopher secret. We grow enough food to share. That's the only way around it. I mean, you're not going to beat the rodents, you'll do your best, and the bugs are even worse, unless you want to spray pesticides. But I didn't play that game. So remember, if your plant is full of bugs, the plant is unhealthy. They're nature's garbage bin. They are doing what they're supposed to do. You have to fed your